and welcome to another episode of Sum of Our Parts, the podcast where two friends talk about the movies that add up to make us who we are. I'm Lindsay,
And I'm Jim.
and we are continuing in our holiday, and for this one specifically, Christmas theme of movies. And once again, we are bringing to you more than one.
Multiple. We have a
So
double feature, so to speak,
you are welcome. We are being so generous during this holiday season.
giving you more than what you anticipated.
Yes, yes. But this time we're actually doing two movies that are basically the same. A movie that I like is actually a remake of a movie that Jim likes. So we decided, why don't we watch and talk about them both? Since they're kind of the same, ultimately the same story, we can kind of compare and contrast. So, Jim, yours is earlier. So why don't you tell us what you picked?
So I picked one of my favorite movies, came out in 1947, The Bishop's Wife, with Cary Grant, David Niven, and Loretta Young. Um, I still watch it. I won't say I watch it every year, but every time it's on, whenever I find it, I do watch it because I really enjoy the story and I enjoy the actors in their roles. And in all honesty, and I think a lot of people considered her beautiful in her time. I think Loretta Young was probably one of the most beautiful women that I've ever seen in my life. And she was in other movies, The Farmer's Daughter. I think she won an Academy Award for a movie, but I'm not sure.
I think it might have been Farmer's Daughter.
Farmer's
I
Daughter,
made a
maybe.
list, yeah.
So,
She was in Call
um,
of the Wild and some other
Sh
things.
yeah, she did a lot of movies, and she was, like I said, just so, just very elegant, very beautiful, and then, of course, Cary Grant was Cary Grant, and
Yes.
David Niven, was, to me was I always enjoyed his movies as well. Good-looking guy, very dashing, both of them English,
Hmm.
although Cary Grant, for some reason, always played an American with that accent.
I think he was like Wikipedia describes him as like American and British, so I don't know if
Oh, uh,
he's like a Gillian Anderson where like
it's
he's a little bit of
possible.
both.
But he always and he was so he was a good looking man, and but I always thought he was a very talented actor, not only in dramatic but also comedic roles, and I think he brings a little bit of both to this role in
Hmm.
this movie. So
Yeah.
anyway, so
Yes.
that's my pick. So Lindsay, and then so your movie, which was
Yeah, so I picked the 1996 movie The Preacher's Wife, which stars Whitney Houston, Courtney B. Vance, and Denzel Washington.
another great
So,
lineup. So
yes, definitely, definitely. And this one I remember watching as a kid. My dad is like a big Whitney Houston fan, so I think anything with Whitney Houston, especially where she's singing, is kind of a lock. I will also say my dad really appreciates a black church. My dad told
oh,
me he wants his funeral to be in a black church, and I'm like, Dad, you're not black. Um, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I mean, it is more, the vibe
mm-hmm.
was more lively
Oh,
than
oh, very much so. Yeah.
so yeah, no, but I remember watching this and like Denzel and stuff when I was a kid. So, and the song that she sings in the jazz club, I Believe in You and Me, is one of my favorite actually of Whitney Houston songs. So that's the part that always stands out to me. This is when I like also learned that I would try to like imitate Whitney Houston because when she does vibrato, she like vibrates like her lip.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like her lower lip. If you have ever seen Whitney Houston sing, you know what I'm talking about. So I would always like try to do that. Like that's how you sing. Like in my mind when I was a
Oh,
kid, I was like,
okay.
oh, okay, you have to like to sing good, you gotta like move your mouth like Whitney Houston does, obviously. So that part I always like I can always picture her singing like at that point in the movie. But yeah, both of these movies are based on a novel from 1928 by Robert Nathan. The Bishop's Wife was directed by Henry Coster. He also directed Harvey, which is the one with Jimmy Stewart and the bunny.
Hmm.
Other a bunch of other movies, My Blue
Well,
Heaven, Stars and Stripes Forever.
technically he's a puka. But he is a 6 foot rabbit. But
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
he's a gin. He's like,
Yes.
yeah. Sorry. That's also one of my favorite movies.
It was written by Leonardo Bercovici, who wrote also things like Sting of a Woman. He was also blacklisted. And Robert E. Sherwood, who wrote the movie Rebecca, I think was probably one of his other
Mhm.
most famous things. He was also a playwright.
Oh, okay.
The Preacher's Wife was directed by the late, great Penny Marshall, who obviously was an actor. We talked about her in Hocus Pocus. I think most famously, she was Laverne in Laverne and Shirley, an inspiration to me as another person whose name starts with an L, who wanted to have an L on all of her clothing. She's directed a bunch of great movies. I think for me, first and foremost, League of Their Own,
Hmm.
but Big,
Big,
Jumpin'
yeah.
Jack Flash, Awakenings, Renaissance Man, which is one we mentioned before. That's the one that with Danny DeVito and that Stacey Dash was in. Riding in Cars with Boys, which is another one I have on my list that I love. It was written by Nat Malden, who doesn't, he's not blue on Wikipedia, so sorry.
Mm,
And Alan Scott, who also wrote Don't Look Now, The Witches, and created the show The Queen's Gambit. Also, I learned when I was looking this up, the score of The Preacher's Wife is done by Hans Zimmer.
really?
Yes. Which I was like, that makes sense because it is a really good score.
Yeah, that, I wouldn't have
I
thought
I
of that.
associate Hans Zimmer with like Superman movies, like sort of big epic movies. So
Hmm.
but this was nice. Also, just putting it out there, we'll talk about the music a little bit later, but according to Wikipedia, which it cited an article from 2015, so I don't know that this is still the same, but I can't imagine it's changed much. But at the time that 2015 article was written, the soundtrack of The Preacher's Wife was the best-selling gospel album of all time because it is all the songs that they sing are, I think, besides I Believe in You and Me, are like gospel songs because it preacher, hence the title, or the bishop in the original. So they follow a pretty similar plot,
Hmm.
which we'll talk through. Long story short, it features a clergyman who has a wife and a child who's really struggling kind of with, I would say, to some extent, their faith, with their effectiveness in their job, as well as a disconnection from their family. And they pray to God for help, and they get an angel named Dudley to help them. A very charming, good looking angel in both cases.
In both cases, yeah. Very well
Um,
dressed, by the way.
yes, and sort of charm everyone except for Henry, who is the titular bishop and preacher. They're kind of like, oh, you're making everybody like you more than me, like kind of thing. And ultimately, spoiler, they do kind of come back to their faith and like the true meaning of their vocation and also reconnect with their family. So yeah, and it looks a little bit different. Obviously, one takes place in 1947. It's the kind of conflict is about the old church is closed and they're trying to build a new cathedral and kind of get funding for that. In the modern one, it takes place like in New York in a kind of impoverished neighborhood. The church is in real disrepair and there's kind of a like developer out to build sort of a like fancy mega church, kind of gentrify. So the settings are a little bit different, but the overall storyline is kind of the same. And there are some moments that are kind of almost exactly the same.
And I think in looking at some of those moments that are the same, I think they took what I think are some of the best moments from each film, and then and utilize that, which I felt was a good thing because it in both instances, I think that both of them were done very well, and
Hmm.
it developed the story, and it also brought out a little bit more about each of the characters.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think like their relationships and like I think it showed like the development and stuff like
Hmm.
that.
The Yeah, the differences in the relationship between the wife, the Julia character, and
Hmm.
their husband. and also the relationship between Dudley and Julia.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
So.
So
So yeah, just so you know, everyone listening, so the bishop or the preacher is named Henry. So that's David Niven in The Bishop's Wife and Courtney B. Vance in The Preacher's Wife. Courtney B. Vance, you have definitely seen in movies and TV. He's been in like a million things. He's been in plays. He's married to Angela Bassett. Like, um,
just an overall really lucky guy.
yeah, yeah. I think he's been in a million things. Like I can't think of them.
My favorite role, Hunt for
Yes,
Red October. He was
yes.
the he was the sonar guy who was the one that picked up on the Russian submarine with the
Mm.
silent propulsion system.
A role of his that I appreciate in The People versus O.J. Simpson. He played Johnny Cochran, the TV series that Ryan Murphy did not that long ago. He did a very good Johnny Cochran. So Julia is the wife in both. So it's Loretta Young in The Bishop's Wife. We talked about her. It's Whitney Houston in The Preacher's Wife. If you don't know who Whitney Houston is,
Yeah, we
where
got
have you
nothing for
been?
you. Yeah,
Um, she's one of the late great Whitney Houston, one of the best. Like she's one of my favorite singers of all time,
no doubt.
easily. You've seen her in other things. She was in The Bodyguard, Waiting to Exhale. This movie, she was in the 1997 Cinderella with Brandy. She was the fairy godmother, which we will have to watch at some point for sure. So yes, just like icon, diva, legend. And then the angel is Dudley. In The Bishop's Wife, that's Cary Grant. Cary Grant was in things like Bringing Up Baby, Philadelphia Story, Arsenic and Old Lace, like again, like a million things, like super famous actor. I think he's one of the ones like kind of like the golden age of Hollywood that people
Yeah,
know.
when you think movie star, I think
Hmm
that he to me he comes to mind.
Yeah, like I think of him in kind of the same. It's like sort of the people that are in those movies, right? Like him and Jimmy Stewart and like Katharine Hepburn, Audrey Hepburn, Humphrey
Hmm.
Bogart, like all of
Clark Gable.
Clark Gable, Gregory Peck, that like cohort
Hmm.
of people.
Right.
Um, and then in The Preacher's Wife, it's Denzel Washington. We have talked about Denzel Washington before. Listen to our episode about Remember the Titans. So he was in that movie. Right now he's in Gladiator 2. He's been in like a ton of things. Training Day, American Gangster,
Glory.
Glory, yes. Fences,
Hmm.
um, just like a ton of things. He's again like one of the best. He was in Macbeth a couple years ago. That was his most recent Oscar nomination. But yeah, another icon. Philadelphia. That was his other Oscar. I think he
Oh,
won
right, right, with Tom
because yeah,
Hanks.
yeah, Glory. But yeah, another like icon legend. He is
Exactly.
the moment, as Wendy Williams would say. So that's kind of setting the stage. So shall we get into it? I guess.
Like you said in the beginning that the Henry or both Henrys are facing some trials and tribulations and doubts and because of who they are, they pray and unbeknownst to them, their prayers are answered.
Yes, yes. And it's a little bit different. It starts a little bit differently. Um, as I mentioned, the bishop's wife, we actually don't meet the bishop immediately. We meet the wife first. She's Christmas tree shopping,
Yeah,
and bumps into the professor, who's a of old family friend. And we learn that in that context, Henry's church is perishing from a lack of funds, and he's trying to get funding to build this new big cathedral. So he's got all these rich people that are like they basically want the cathedral to be like a vanity project for them. And he's like resistant to that because he's like, that's not sort of what church is about. In contrast, or similarly, the preacher's wife starts at a service. It's also narrated by their son, um, little Jeremiah, which is like kind of cute, but also like, okay, I guess.
I kind of like that. I thought at first it was going to be from Jeremiah's entire point of view, the whole movie, and I kind of like that. But then it sort of
Yeah.
didn't go that way, but I thought it was, yeah, it was
It's
interesting.
cute. It's also like, Jeremiah, how'd you know all this? There's some stuff that you were not there for. Anyways, we start at church and the context is a little bit different. So Julia's father had been the preacher at this church, and then her husband Henry has taken over. And he actually delivers a sermon that was her father's, and she leads the choir, obviously, because it's Whitney Houston. So you can't have
Right.
Whitney Houston in your movie and not have her singing.
Right.
Um, but he seems to just struggle generally to feel like he is effective. Because I think he even says like he did a sermon from her father because like he actually could like accomplish things basically.
Hmm.
So both Henrys start down and they pray for help, and then we get an angel named Dudley. So, and again, they pop up a little bit differently. Cary Grant like pops up in like the shadows of his office, which is kind of scary. I think there's even at some point there's some like scary music too. It's like,
There's a little bit of, yeah, melodramatic music where, it's like, and he's just in the room,
in like a
and
shadow.
right, yeah. Um,
And he's kind of like a big dude too.
well, and he's wearing. I thought it was interesting the contrast in the suits
Mm.
between the two Dudleys.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie's in a dark suit, very, debonair, very dapper, but he could almost be, I don't know, a criminal, a
Mm-hmm.
gangster,
Yeah, because
and
he was wearing that like typical kind of 40 silhouette, right? Of like it's
mm-hmm,
sort of the long double-breasted
right,
jacket.
mm-hmm, where
And
you had,
then
yeah, Denzel,
Denzel's in the light gray.
yeah, almost like like a dove gray. I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
it's all gray,
Yes, he's got the gray hat. Everything is
very
gray.
dapper, but
Yes.
very, very 90s too. I thought,
Mm-hmm.
going back to that era, that if you look at the suits were a little boxier back then.
Yeah.
Pants were a little baggier
Mm-hmm.
than they are these days. So,
Yeah.
and they were more comfortable.
I'm sure. I'm sure now everybody's showing ankle. Um,
You could sit down in those. I mean, you could actually relax in those suits. I mean, I know they didn't look as fitted and everything, but boy, they were comfy. Let me tell you.
mm.
So
But also everyone looked like they were like three people wide.
that's true too. Because they all look like what's his name from Talking Heads.
Yes. David Byrne.
David Byrne in
He's
his
like,
suit. He's got a suit that's 6 times too big for him, but
yeah.
that's what the suits were cut like.
Hmm.
They were wide in the shoulders and they didn't taper down. They just stayed straight, and the
Yeah.
pants were the same way.
Like if you ever look at pictures from like NBA drafts from like the late 90s and early 2000s, it looks hilarious. Like look
Yeah.
at like Carmelo Anthony and like LeBron James's draft class.
Mm-hmm.
Goofy. Or even like Michael Jordan. Um, but yeah, anyways, they are in different suits, but they both pop up. Denzel falls into the snow where the kids are playing. He like falls out of the sky. um,
And
and actually, Dudley in Cary Grant's Dudley, you see earlier, he's kind of stalking them like
what?
a little bit. He's
Yeah,
around.
he's yeah, just walking around the streets of the town,
Hmm.
and then sort of, while it's snowing. So
Yeah.
lots of snow in both movies, but it is
Yes.
Christmas time, so that's
Hmm.
okay.
Yes. And you see also early on, both Henrys have a lot of responsibilities, and that leads them to neglect their wife. So, like, Henry and the bishop's wife is like, oh, tomorrow, like, we're going to go for a walk and we're going to have lunch together. And Courtney B. Vance's Henry kind of says the same thing. We're going to do all this stuff. But then they have their duties. Like, David Niven's Henry has to go to like the bank to a board meeting. He's trying to get more money. And then he had like a speaking somewhere at lunch. And then Courtney B. Vance, there's a kid. I will say this is one of the other differences too that we talked about. It's a little more real life is happening a little bit more in The Preacher's Wife.
Mm-hmm.
They live in New York, right? So there's like poverty and like crime and stuff's happening to people. So there's a young man in the congregation. His mom is part of the congregation. She has several children, and one of them is a teenager, and he kind of is sort of wrong place, wrong time. A robbery happens, and the store owner was like, "It was him," and it obviously wasn't. Like we see it unfold, but
Hmm.
he's like a young black kid, and like a gun fell on the ground like in his vicinity, so he's arrested. So Courtney B. Vance's Henry has to go to hearing for him to try to get him bailed out, and then he has to go meet with this real estate gentleman, Joe Hamilton, who's played by Gregory Hines. uh Actually in both movies some great like side characters
Oh yeah,
played by great actors. So like in The Preacher's Wife you have Gregory Hines, who's like a very famous actor, and like wasn't he a tap dancer?
tap dancer. Yeah,
And you have Jennifer Lewis plays Marguerite, who's Whitney Houston's mom. Jennifer Lewis has been in a million things. She's a Broadway star. She was most recently on the show Blackish. She was in the Sister Act movies. She's one of like Dolores's backup singers and lots of other things. And then you have Loretta Devine is the secretary.
Beverly.
Beverly, I love it. She's very funny, and her character is a little bit different. There's a secretary in both of them, but she's funny because she thinks that Dudley is trying to take her job. Because
And
Dudley, once he introduces himself to Henry as an angel, and Henry doesn't really believe it. Both Henrys don't really believe it until he does some like angel magic.
hmm
Um, but the secretary of the bishop's wife is like, "Oh, great! He introduces himself to everyone else as Henry's assistant because he's like, oh, I'm here to help Henry, kind of like an assistant."
right.
And the secretary of the bishop's wife is like, oh, great. And then the secretary and the preacher's wife is like, oh my God, I'm about to lose my job. I have children. I can't do this. Loretta Devine is in this movie for like 5 minutes and she's so funny.
She's very funny, and I think some of it is the way she talks.
Hmm.
Just and she has that kind of a shrill, or a
Yeah.
very high pitched voice, but
And
her
she's
facial
just like,
expressions.
like just like spitting words out like a mile a minute. To like, oh Lord, I cannot lose my job. I had these kids, and that man that ran away to Cleveland is not paying any money towards my kids, so I cannot lose this job. She's so funny. Loretta Devine, if you don't know her, she I loved her in the show Boston Public. That was one of my favorite shows when I was in high school. But she's been in a bunch of movies. She's also in Waiting to Exhale. She is in another movie that I love called Kingdom Come. She's also a Broadway star. She was an original Dream Girl, icon legend, etc. In The Bishop's Wife, they have a maid. I was like, did everybody in the 40s have a maid, or are they like doing well? Because if they're doing well, what's
I think
the
the
problem?
bishop. I think in looking back, and I don't know. Well, he's married, so it's not Catholic. So I'm guessing
Hmm.
it's
He's like
something else.
Episcopal.
Yeah, Episcopalian, but um, I think back in those days, if because he was made bishop, Mrs. Hamilton talked about,
Hmm.
how he was young and everything. But I think that all came with the trappings of the job.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, well, they have a maid named Matilda who's played by, if you watch this movie and you'll look at her face, you'll be like, that face looks familiar. And it's because she's Elsa Lancaster, who's the Bride of Frankenstein. um,
But she's very pleasant in this movie.
she is, yes. She's very, very pleasant and British. But yeah, they have some other kind of big actors in the movie. The professor is played by Monty Woolley,
Great
who's
name.
in The Pied Piper, The Man Who Came to Dinner. And then there's a cab driver named Sylvester, who's played by James Gleason, who is in a bunch he was in The Night of the Hunter. He was frequently on Alfred Hitchcock Presents, etc.
He
That's what
was
I wrote down.
he was yeah, he was in a lot of movies.
But yeah, so anyways, Henry prays for help, and God sends Dudley. He's like, "Hey, I'm an angel here to help you." And both Henrys are like, "Oh, you okay?" But they do some magic to sort of be like, "Hey, guess what? I am an angel."
But it's funny because they can't tell anybody.
Yeah,
Uh, and it's not like, oh, you got to promise not to tell anybody. They can't physically say it.
right.
The word can't come out of their mouths
Yeah,
that
yeah,
oh, he's a, and then they always stop because they can't say angel.
yes.
So
And they also know, I feel like, like this is gonna sound crazy.
Right, exactly. Which, if you think about it, they're both men of God. And if anybody should believe in an angel, and even Dudley says that, he goes, if anybody should believe in me, it's you,
Right, right,
but you don't.
right. Although it would still like, as both Henry say too, this is not what you expect an angel to look like. Both of them are like, where are your wings?
Hmm. They both ask that question. So,
Yeah.
and
I think both Dudleys like make a joke, like, oh, they don't fit with the jacket or like whatever.
something, yeah,
Um,
yeah. They don't go with a suit or,
yes. And I think we should say too, the Dudleys are a little bit different. Cary Grant's Dudley seems to have been an angel forever because he talks to the professor about like this coin and how it's like ancient and it was belonged to like Cleopatra basically, and you
hmm,
should sell this because it's worth like $1 million to a
right.
museum, which is good for the professor because he's not doing good. Like the Christmas tree he buys, which he haggled for, is giving Charlie Brown. It's giving Charlie Brown Christmas.
I wrote that down that the
So
professor has a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. So, and haggled about it, about paying, about how much to pay for it.
yeah. So he's not doing great, but it is kind of sweet because he says he buys a tree. He's sort of like a cynical guy, but he buys a tree because it reminds him of his childhood
Hmm.
and he feels like that nice nostalgia. Denzel's Dudley is a little bit different. So he talks about like having died. So he's an angel in the sense like he's not like one of the OG angels that like God created. He's, the idea that like you die and then you become an angel. And this is kind of his like first gig since becoming an angel. So he's got his rule book, the angel rules. He reads three of them. I don't remember what they all are. The second one is he can't make Courtney B. Vance do anything against his own free will.
Right. Oh, the first one is he can't do anything that they can do for themselves.
Yes, yes. And then the second one, I think there was a third one,
There was
but
a The third one was that when he's gone, they will have no
oh, they
memory
won't
of
remember
him.
him.
They
And
won't
oh
remember
yeah, because Courtney B. Vance says that one's my favorite. Because yeah, he is not. Neither of the Henrys are super keen on Dudley, so Dudley kind of turns his attention to their wives and children. So and like the other members of the household.
Hmm.
Henry in The Bishop's Wife has his wife Julia and a daughter Debbie. In The Preacher's Wife, it's wife Julia, son Jeremiah. When both Henrys are otherwise occupied, Dudley kind of swoops in to spend time with them. So they go out to lunch, go shopping with the wives and kids. Also give like the how other people time off, like sends the secretaries out to have their time for Christmas shopping and stuff, which is nice. Which I don't think that Henry would be against. I think they're just a little thoughtless. They're a little scattered.
Yeah, you sort of get the idea that they're just maybe a little perturbed that Dudley did it, without even, consulting. But Dudley's like, in both cases, Dudleys are there to help and assist, and they're just doing what they think is what Henry needs. Leaving Henry says he has to do these other duties, so Dudley says, "Okay, then I'll take care of these other things."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And everyone else is really charmed by Dudley in
Oh
both
yeah.
movies, like a lot, which, like, it's Cary Grant and Denzel Washington. How could you not be?
Uh,
But they're all just like enamored. Like when Jennifer Lewis sees Denzel Washington for the first time, she's like, "Oh, that is a man." It's great.
Also, there seems to be something with Denzel's Dudley in his handshake.
Oh yeah, he's got like a little magic.
There,
Oh, because he's when he first shakes Courtney B. Vance's hand, he's like, "Oh, you felt that?" And
yeah.
Courtney B. Vance is like, "No, no, I didn't feel anything. What are you
it's
talking about?"
it's like being young at summertime and the smell of cookies all in the same thing.
Yeah,
So yeah, sort of like, all the good things all wrapped up into one handshake. So
yeah. So it's like everybody gets a little like, "Oh," when they shake hands with
yeah,
him. Oh, also the Henry and the preacher's wife's church, the boiler explodes, so they don't have heat anymore, and it's
pretty
Christmas
dilapidated
time.
looking boiler, you got to admit.
It was struggling.
It
Oh my God. in the middle of a choir rehearsal. And the choir is like a real choir that they're using in this movie.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I can see that because they were very, very, very good. So,
Yes. Even just the part where they're like, it's the Georgia Mass Choir.
oh,
Uh,
okay.
the beginning when they're like backing him up during
Mm-hmm.
when he says something about like having God to lean on and they go, lean, and they lean.
I love that, and I will say, for I had never seen The Preacher's Wife, so this is the
hmm
first time I've seen that. So,
Yes, and I had never seen The Bishop's Wife, so we both
okay,
got to experience an old
yeah,
favorite and something new this week.
exactly. So,
So, but yeah, I think that it we get some kind of parallel scenes of Dudley spending time with Julia. It looks a little bit different. The order's a little bit different, but at one point he reads her palm, and it's like very intimate, flirtatious.
that's a really good word. Yeah, that's a good word, flirtatious.
Yeah, because it's like, ooh, I'm touching the palm of your hand. We're very close.
Hmm.
And they're talking about like like Denzel's Dudley's talking about like the fire in relationships and stuff like that. And ice skating. They go ice skating, both of them.
Yeah,
And that's also another kind of like, you know, they're cuddled up a little bit, you know.
they're doing and that's what we call it, dancing, is the cuddle. When
hmm
the man holds the woman to his side and then puts his arm around her. It's the that's
hmm
so
Yeah, they're kind of snuggled up. And they also each go to a place that's meaningful to Julia and Henry. So in The Bishop's Wife, they go to this French restaurant. Was it called Michelle's?
Michelle's Michelle.
Yes. And Dudley's like, "Oh, just give us like one of them. Give us the best stuff that the chef recommends." And, it's very fancy. And even like it looks they are close enough that like it draws the attention of the other nosy ladies in
Yeah,
there.
some of the other members of the cathedral committee, or
Are
yeah.
like,
Mm, mm.
we see what's going on over here.
What
Which is
that
also I like the part too because Dudley's like, "Oh, hi. Hey, how are you?"
I'm here with Julia. Would you like to come and have lunch with us?
And they're like, "Oh, no, no, no." It's kind of funny because it's like, "Oh, we're caught."
Yeah. Well, just have coffee. And then he orders Stingers, which, in case you don't know, Stinger's a cocktail. So yeah, you knew that, I'm sure.
Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay, yeah, three Stingers. So
In The Preacher's Wife, they go to a club, a jazz club, because Dudley was trying to get Henry to take her out dancing, but he's like, "Oh, I got to go visit this person in the hospital, and I got to go da da da. The youth center is closing, and this and that and the other." So he's like, "You take her out dancing." He did not tell him to take her to, I forget what the place is called.
Jazzy's,
Jazzy's. Of
Jazzy's,
course. Of
yeah.
course. Easy. I should remember that.
Not an
Where we
original
also
name
meet,
for a jazz club. I'm just
no,
saying. Yeah.
but it is where we meet our next cameo in this movie.
Mm.
Lionel Richie, plays Bristlow, who's like an old friend of theirs. And it also seems like, I think this is a thing too that's a theme in both movies. Like he casually mentions like he had been in Paris, like playing jazz for a while, but he
Hmm.
says that without Henry, he would not have been able to go to Paris. So like all these people have been touched like by Henry in both movies, both Henrys, but I think they just like have like lost perspective a little bit.
Hmm. That's a good way to put it.
Um,
Yeah. That's a.
but Jazzy's is where Henry proposed to Julia. So he's like, "What? You can't take her there." But again, because this is Whitney Houston, we get a scene of her singing because it's like, "Oh, she used to like sing here all the time." And Dudley's like, "Oh, well, you gotta sing." Oh, also before that she sings, so Denzel's dancing when they're trying to like they were sort of slow dancing, but it's like upbeat jazz. So then he's trying to keep up with other people and he's just going crazy with the snapping. He really gets into the dancing. But this is where Whitney Houston gets up and sings I Believe in You and Me, which is just like a song that I love so much. I know it by heart, like every kind of like nuance and ad lib. Like I don't have to like look at it or listen. I will not even attempt to sing it. I know I sing a lot of songs in here, not this one, because I am not,
Oh,
I cannot do
oh, okay.
I can't do Whitney Houston. I'm sorry. Do I lip sync to it every time I hear it though? Yes. Like truly I worry one day that I'm gonna get like pulled over because people are gonna think I'm like driving drunk, but it's really just that I'm very passionately doing Whitney Houston
Not a worry.
in my
So
car.
I'll come to your defense if need
I
be.
appreciate it.
Sure.
Mr. Officer, I've drank nothing.
It's
I just love Whitney Houston.
all right,
Have you heard this
officer.
song?
I, it's all right. I'll bail her out. It's not a problem, sir. We'll
But
take
yeah.
care of it. Um, I do
Um,
like when before she gets up and sings though that Lionel Richie's character talks about how she sang, like she used to sing in the
mm-hmm.
club, and he said, "If you want to know what love sounds like,"
Mm-hmm.
and then and she's like, "Oh no, no, I can't sing, I can't." And Denzel says he looks at her like, "I want to know what love sounds like." And you
Mm-hmm.
kind of get the feeling that because he said he never had settled down with anybody, that
Yeah.
that he never got the opportunity to either meet someone or to be with someone long enough. And you can tell that he actually he really does want to hear what this
Mm-hmm.
is going to be. So I thought that was very sweet the way that they put it.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, but yeah, I love that song. If you have not ever listened to it, listen to I Believe in You and Me. You can actually on YouTube find the clip where she sings it in the movie. It's just beautiful.
It
I
is.
I love it. Like if I ever get married, like this, well, I will probably have to like play this at my wedding.
Well, I was just going to ask you because I can see where this would be a something that they would play at weddings. So yeah, is this on the
Literally,
is
like the first line is like, I believe in you and me. I believe that we will be in love eternally. And I love the bridge too. That's like,
mm-hmm.
it goes, maybe I'm a fool to feel the way I do, but I will play the fool forever just to be with you forever. Doing it in the way she does it. It's like, but I will play the fool forever just to be with you forever. I believe in miracles. And love's a miracle, but she's like, goes low. So there you go. I did sing a little bit.
That you
Sorry.
did so, no, I'm glad you did
But it's
so.
like the bridge of this song is like one of the best things like ever to me. So
It's very, very, very good. It
it's
really
so
is.
good. And also
It's up there with with all of her other stuff.
the other thing I love about Whitney Houston, she does like sweat, but
She does.
she doesn't look like she's working hard.
No,
Besides
but
the
she
sweating.
does
Like
perspire. I
her
noticed
she
that
does.
when
You see her at the beginning. She's got
yeah,
a, you know,
and on her lip and
yes, in the
and her
she's also
face.
wearing the doing the choir robe, but she was like singing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Um but yeah, and but it doesn't look like she's like straining when she goes for big notes. You know, some people like
Oh
they
yeah.
have to like
Yeah.
grit their teeth and
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
she's just like
Watch Pavarotti. Pavarotti.
yes.
I mean, you
Um
think he's going to bust a lung or something, so or a blood vessel.
yeah, so well, that's kind of the sort of Dudley Julia relationship is also similar in both of them, right? You clearly are getting a vibe that there's
That
Dudley is kind of like falling for Julia, and that Julia also like at the very
mm,
least is really appreciating this attention.
well, yeah, it's something that she's not gotten from
Mhm.
Either Henry, I think they both make it very clear, both Julias do, that they're in love with Henry. I mean,
Yes.
they don't, for, and people know there's a difference between loving someone and being in love with someone.
Hmm.
And then they're in love with Henry, and it's not that thought would ever cross. Maybe it crosses their mind, but they would never
Hmm.
do that. But yeah, I think they're appreciative of the attention, and but on the other hand, yeah, you can see in Dudley, both Dudleys, that they are falling in love with
Yeah.
Julia.
And this is a little bit later, but both of them do make kind of more explicit. moves toward that. I think
Hmm.
Denzel's Dudley doesn't really say it to her, but you see towards the end of the movie, right before he leaves, he actually kind of magics the wedding picture in their
Hmm.
house to have him instead of Courtney B. Vance. But then he gets a little clap of thunder in response. So he's like, okay, I'll change it back.
Yeah.
Cary Grant Dudley actually does say to her, like, tell me you don't want me to leave or something like that.
Right.
And
And
she's like, ooh, I can't do that. It's kind of like, oh,
what, and he even tells in the original, in the first one, he tells Henry, he said, when an angel starts to feel jealous of a human, of a
hmm
mortal,
yeah,
then it's time. He and even Dudley knew that was wrong.
hmm
Because he's an angel. He could make her probably fall in love with him.
yeah, yeah. And they both actually, both angels also disrupt Henry to spend more time with Julia. And it is kind of comical in both cases. I think in The Bishop's Wife, it is more comical. In The Bishop's Wife, they're all supposed to go to St. Timothy's, which is the old church that's closing. But Mrs. Hamilton, who is the really rich woman who's putting in most of the money for this new cathedral. But she basically wants everything in the. It's like going to be named after her late husband. She wants
Hmm.
the like stained glass of St. George to actually be like her husband George's face. So it's like basically a vanity project. So she kind of summons Henry to meet with her. And well, he has to go because he's decided. He at first said no, and he's changing his mind. He's like, yeah, whatever. Because he's sort of like, we need the cathedral. So like at this point, I can't hang out on principle.
Yeah, he's just going to cave.
Yeah. And also he kind of wants Dudley to leave. And he's like, okay, well, I asked for help with the cathedral thing. So if I get the cathedral thing done, then he can go. Um, but he ends up he sits in a chair talking to Mrs. Hamilton. They make the deal. She's like, great, I'll move the money, da da da. And he's ready to go meet them because he was supposed to meet them to see the boys' choir practice for the Christmas Eve service. And when he goes to get up, he finds that the chair goes with him.
It is very
It
comical,
is
I
very
think.
funny,
And
especially because
David
like
Niven does it very well.
he's like not funny at all. Like he's playing it fully straight. He's just like, okay, well, we're gonna, oh, all right. They're trying to see if they have like turpentine or whatever to like unstick him.
Yeah,
And then eventually,
they think that they varnished the chairs and it hadn't dried or
yeah.
some, when we all know it's Dudley that's making it stick. So
hmm And then the eventually he calls like the maid and was like, bring me some pants. Because he's just gonna like sacrifice the pants he was wearing to the chair. It is funny to watch him just like walk up and stand up and walk with the chair still attached to him. I love
still
when Mrs.
attached to
Hamilton's
him.
like, oh, please have a seat. And he's like, I have one, actually. Thank you. He like walks with the chair over to the phone.
That I was going to say that the whole part is, yeah, he just does it in such a very strict way. It's yeah, like you say, he
Yeah.
doesn't play it for laughs. It's just that
He's fully just like deadpan, kind of like, well,
I'm stuck to a chair,
this is the
and
situation I find myself in.
exactly. And in your movie,
It's the time, it's the part where they're ice skating and he is supposed to meet them. Henry's supposed to meet them ice skating. And Dudley is like, oh, he might be running into traffic at this time of day. And somehow every light he gets to turns red. Like it'll let like what other car through and then turn red just for him.
and it stays red
Yes.
for such a long time.
So
So
he basically misses the opportunity to go ice skating with them. So Dudley gets all the time with Julia and Jeremiah by himself.
yeah, I thought that was clever too for him to, because and that was done very well because again, Henry in the car was playing it. It was like, I cannot believe that.
He's like,
And
what is going on? He's like looking around like, is anyone else seeing this? Like,
yeah,
what
he's
is
looking at the other
happening?
drivers like, am I the only one? It's like poor
What is
Henry.
going on? Yeah, I think it was less of a sight gag, but also did feel a little bit more like real This is
Yeah,
a good realistic prank to play on someone
exactly. So,
for sure. But yeah, so we get that Dudley is actively interfering with Henry, even though at the same time he is there to like make Henry like reignite his relationship. And there's other people too that are like in support of that. So like for
mhm.
example, the professor in The Bishop's Wife, he's like, Julia loves you. Like, get it together.
Yeah, and both of them even say, to Henry, it's like, she loves you, and you need to, you know, get this done.
Yes. Like he actually the professor says like he's like, listen, he's basically like, my life sucks and you're a bishop, but I feel bad for you.
Yeah, that's how bad, or that it appears to the professor, that, yeah,
Yeah.
that Henry's life is a shambles. And
Yeah. And he also tells him he's like, the angel can't be with her. Like you're a man. You actually have an advantage over the angel here. And then he tries to fight him. He's like, listen, I didn't ever think I was gonna have to fight an angel, but like, take off your coat and let's go outside, man.
I admire Henry for that, to stand up to an angel of all things,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
he loves Julia too just as much. He just maybe has
Yeah.
forgotten that, or has lost sight of that.
Yeah.
So in both cases.
For sure. And I think that part is nice as the viewer because right before that is when Henry had said, like, tell me to stay. Or when Dudley had said to Julia, tell me to stay. And he said, I wrote this down, like, you make heaven on earth, which I was like,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good line. But she
Mm-hmm.
says, no, I can't because she loves Henry. So, like, we've seen her kind of be like, no, like, I love Henry, just as Henry finally, like, steps up to fight with her. And it's like, finally, it's going to happen.
I did like in The Preacher's Wife too, with also is it her mother
Yes.
has a heart to heart, so to speak, with Dudley, walk me,
Yeah.
across the street, walk me.
He tries to not, and she's like, no, let's go. Walk me.
Walk, and I love the way she said it, walk me, not walk
Mm-hmm.
with me, walk me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
And yeah, because she's like, and she talks to Julia too. She's like, I don't know what's going on here, but your husband is Henry. And like you need to support him also. And Julia's like, well, mother, he's basically ignoring me. And she's like your dad when he was the preacher, like this kind of stuff happened too. Like,
mm,
so they also have a conflict around selling the church
mhm,
because he's going to sell the church to this Mr. Hamilton, Joe Hamilton, who's the like a real estate developer. Basically, he builds like he was going to kind of give that up and he's going to in a different area build this big old mega church and da, da, da. He builds like all these like condo complexes and like malls and tennis courts and stuff. So he's kind of going to build a version of that that's a church. And then even when Henry Courtney B. Vance tries to back out, he's like, well, guess what? I own the mortgage on your church, so I'm tearing it down anyway.
right, yeah,
And then we get to a point in both movies where Dudley kind of steps back from his involvement with the couple and sets their sight on the Hamiltons. So, and it goes a little bit differently because obviously the vibe is set up a little bit differently. So in The Bishop's Wife, Mrs. Hamilton, we know she's a widow, a rich widow, and she's building this church as a vanity project to her husband, her late husband, George. But come to find out when Dudley goes to her home to speak with her, first of all, he's snooping, but he finds music for a song that was written for her by someone else, not her husband. Which at first I was like, oh, was she stepping out? She was not. But he plays it on the harp obviously like very beautifully. He's an angel. That's a thing that they do, I guess. That's their leisure activity is playing the harp.
they have harps. I
Yeah.
mean, I think they're issued them. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. So
He was like shredding on that harp.
he
Like
was. So
um but she recognizes the song and kind of pours her heart out. So basically, she had this guy was her first love, her real true love, but he didn't have anything,
Mhm.
and she was kind of scared to commit to him, and he was kind of the one that got away. And then George Hamilton came to her, and he loved her. She didn't really love him, but he was like rich and she could have this life, so she kind of agreed. And it seems like she feels guilty about that. And that's sort of why she's trying to like build this cathedral as a monument to him, because she never like loved him the way that she should have or felt she should have. So she's like, this, I'm trying to like make it up to him, kind of is the how I read that.
No, I think you nailed it
So,
exactly.
but then after Dudley's intervention, because there is talk with like, I think between Henry and Julia, it's like, why are we like doing all of this? Like, what about helping like the poor and like sick people and like, you know what I mean? Um, After Dudley talks to Mrs. Hamilton, first of all, she warms up to to Dudley quickly. She's like, call me Agnes. And she does eventually let Henry and Julia call her Agnes too, once she's warmed up. But she decided, we don't need the, don't worry about the cathedral. We're not doing that. I want to give my money to the poor and the sick and every help people around the world. And Henry, I want you to kind of like oversee that. In The Preacher's Wife, as I mentioned, it's the Mr. Joe Hamilton, Gregory Hines is kind of more antagonistic. He's like, I'm tearing this church down. It is worth more to me, like empty as an like empty ground than this church. Also, he's mad too because they had made a deal that he would give them a new boiler for this church for the rest of the time they're using it in exchange for Henry Courtney B. Vance to go to this new big church. Uh, so the boiler's already there, and
Yeah,
when
we
Henry
get to see
backs
the
out,
boiler in all its glory.
it's beautiful
It
modern
it
1996 boiler.
has
It's
the
not like,
safe has the safety inspection tags on it and everything.
yes,
So yeah,
it's not like shaking and leaking water like the other one
or just
was.
look like it's covered in grease and oil and rust.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That first one, it looked like it belonged on the, what's the ship in Alien where everything was wet?
oh, doggone it, what was the name of the ship?
Nostradamus.
Nostradamus. Yeah,
It looked
yeah. Oh
like
yeah,
because
yeah.
it was like wet and in disrepair.
It just
Uh,
wasn't a good look. Yeah.
no.
So
If the alien popped out, I wouldn't have been surprised.
not at all.
Uh, but yeah, so that's what, part of the other reason why Joe Hamilton is mad because he's like, we had a deal. I gave you a boiler.
Right. Yeah.
And Courtney B. Vance is like, I don't care. Like, I'm here like for the community. Because at some point, Dudley also tells him, like, the church is the glue of this community. And also, if you give up this church, Julia is like never going to talk to you again. Uh, so it is like really meaningful. And eventually, Dudley goes to see Joe Hamilton at what is perhaps the ugliest home I've ever seen.
Really, for at least Mrs. Hamilton's house was elegant looking. I mean, it was
Right.
big and gaudy, but Joe's was like,
It looked like the early 90s threw up. Like it looks like it reminded me of like, you know how like Taco Bell's used to look with the like sort of like
oh
neon
yeah,
like and
yeah,
white
yeah, when they
like
first opened up and stuff. Yeah, yeah.
mm-hmm. That's what his house looked like. It was like that vibe. Like it was just ugly.
It was like a
90s. Like, I love the 90s, but like this was like the idea of like 90s modern rich
rich, yeah,
kind of stuff.
nouveau rich.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just the ugliest home you've ever seen.
Oh, it was
It looks like it was
terrible.
made of Legos.
That's it. Yeah, yep.
It was,
Yeah.
everything was like shiny and white.
White. It was like it looked like plastic. It
Yeah,
all
like
looked
it
like
didn't look like, or
didn't
it
look
looks
like
like when you buy a new appliance and it has the plastic on it before you
yeah.
peel it
Before
off.
you
It looked
peel
like
it
that.
off,
Everything looked like that. But Dudley goes there and Dudley basically has to threaten him. Um, because he you know he tries to talk to him and Joe Hamilton is like, I don't care. At one point he says,
to
uh
hell with
to
Henry,
hell with
wasn't it?
Henry, and Dudley's like, no, 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 to heaven with him. But what about you? He clearly shows that he's an angel also because he's playing the piano and gets up from the piano, which then continues playing.
Mm.
And Joe Hamilton's like, what? What is happening
But
here?
he's still not buying entirely into that. He says, "Well, that's a good trick, but
Yeah,
yeah, although it's it is Joe's piano, so it's not like Dudley brought his own piano and it's
right.
a
And
fake
it doesn't
piano.
seem to be a player piano, so like
No,
it's a regular
good
piano.
product placement, by the way. We all know now it was a Yamaha.
Yes. Eventually Dudley's like, think about the actual price you're paying for this.
Mm,
So, it's sort of like a little mic drop,
right.
and then he leaves. Joe Hamilton comes to the Christmas service, which is obviously lovely. There's a nativity play that ends with a song that Whitney Houston, because they were like, I don't think Whitney Houston sang enough songs. So basically the girl that's playing the Virgin Mary, the doll they use is one of the dolls that like pees and it gets her all wet and she gets up and walks away. But this is being televised on local news. So Whitney Houston has to step in. It's like her and a bunch of children. But it is sweet.
It is.
And she gives Dudley a nice kiss on the cheek right before she does. But and then after the Joe Hamilton attends the service and he's moved by it. And at the end of it, he's like, we'll talk about the mortgage. We'll figure it out. Like, meet with me Monday morning and like, we'll take care of it. One of the other parallels, I think the last like big one is the sermon that they give. Uh,
Hmm.
both of them are writing a sermon.
Well, in The Bishop's Wife, actually, Cary Grant writes the sermon.
Right, but
Remember,
he was
he
writing it first and then he changed it.
changed it.
They
Yeah,
both
so
the parallel I was going to say is that it's changed from what they originally write.
I'm sorry. Yes, you're
So,
absolutely
because
right.
yeah, so in the difference is that in The Bishop's Wife, the angel Dudley rewrites it
Right.
and he types it. He
Well, he has
has
the
the
typewriter,
typewriter
yeah,
magically type it.
as opposed to
And
a player piano. It's a typing
yes,
typewriter. So,
exactly. And in The Preacher's Wife, basically Courtney B. Vance just like improvises something new. Because what he wrote was a real downer.
oh, it
It
was
was basically like Christmas is supposed to be happy, but today's not because we got to sell the church. It's like that's what you were gonna say to people on Christmas.
well, I guess he has to be the bearer of bad news as well as good news. I don't know, but
Yeah.
yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought, boy,
It was
talk
like,
about, especially for Christmas.
right?
It's like
Jeez.
I
You couldn't at
know.
least give people something before you get into that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, what I was gonna say is I don't because we hear him like talking through it and we
Mm-hmm.
see it on the prompter. So I don't remember in The Bishop's Wife if we get a flavor of what Henry was writing before Dudley rewrote
Not that
it.
I'm aware of.
Okay, I was gonna say
No,
I
I
don't
don't.
remember hearing that, but we
Yeah.
hear Dudley, we hear what Dudley is dictating to the
Right,
typewriter.
because he looks at the sermon that Henry starts to write, and he's like throws it away or something, and he's like, that's no good. We got to
Yeah,
do better than that.
yeah.
So
Also, shout out to Dudley because Henry was having his secretary. It's like Christmas Eve, and he's like, "Oh, can you stay late and type up like 5 carbon copies of this?" And she's like, "Oh, okay." And Dudley's like, "You can go. I got
yeah,
it. I can
I'll
type."
take care of it. Yeah,
So he bangs it out much more quickly. But yeah, so Henry gives Dudley's much better sermon. And in both instances, Dudley is there witnessing it, but no one knows who he is at that point. They've
right.
forgotten him.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. His job's done.
his
So
job's done.
rule number three: they won't
Yes,
have any memory of me
yes.
when my job is finished.
Although in The Preacher's Wife, the little boy Jeremiah does remember Dudley the angel, but no one believes him. They think he
Yeah,
made it up because he is like
because
5.
well, but we all, I mean, that is one of the angel rules, isn't it? That
Mhm.
animals and little children can see and hear angels.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
we can't. We grow too old,
We
or
adults are too cynical and
exactly, our hearts aren't open enough, or our minds are too crowded, or
yeah,
so.
yeah. But yeah, and I think at the end we get 2 like nice sermons. I just watched The Preacher's Wife, so it's fresher in my mind, but he basically talks about like hope and love and forgiveness, and how even when you can kind of take that love for granted, like, you can kind of come back, and loving someone else is like loving God and like all this stuff. So it is very like
I like both of them. I thought both of them
passionate.
were very uplifting. All but now that I think about it, though, the original one, it was a little bit of a downer, because he was talking about how everyone gets a present except Jesus. There's no stocking for Jesus,
Mm.
and then maybe we could do better and stuff like that. Where I think uh, the newer one, Henry's sermon, was, like you said, more uplifting and more
Hmm.
about this is what we can do, or this is what we should do, or what we're able to do. So
Yeah,
I
that's
like
true.
both of them though, but um, I'm more used to the original because I've seen the movie so many times. But I did like the sermon in the newer one.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're both nice. I think for me, of course, like I've seen this one more, the Preacher's Wife more, so
Well,
like it I like relate to it more. And I think the other piece that I do like about it is that it does have more like real life stuff. Like there's
mm,
the kid Billy who is arrested for a crime he didn't commit. And eventually I love this part is lovely, but also like this is not how court works. Because Henry was like going to like help the family and like offer guidance and stuff, but he like it wasn't even clear that he believed that the kid Billy was innocent, which Dudley calls him out for. He was like, "Do you even believe that he's innocent?"
right.
But he goes and he like looks him in the eye in like a very awkward way, like he's just staring at him. And Billy's like, even like the bailiff with him is like, "What?" But he's like, hold on a minute. And he basically busts in the courtroom and is like, he's innocent. There's evidence of it. You need to let him go. The end. And the judge is like, what are you doing? But they
And
let him
it's
go.
I know he burst in the middle of another case, so
Yeah.
it's
But
not.
the defense, same defense lawyer, she's sitting there. I guess
I
she's
guess
waiting for
she's the
them to be
public
called.
defender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's also Lisa McDowell from Coming to America.
Oh, I didn't know that. She did
Yeah.
look familiar, but I
Yes.
couldn't place
And do
her.
you know who else I think? I gotta check. But Saul, the guy who like drives the bus, I think he's also in Coming to America, the one who would be like, "Here is King Jaffe Joffer," like the one who would announce him.
I think you're right.
I'm pretty sure it's the same guy. Let me confirm. But yeah, that part I was like, I love this. Not how court works. You would be in contempt.
Or at the very least, they would bailiff or either escort this
Remove
man
him
out of
from this room.
the courtroom or arrest him. Um,
Yes, it was him. He is the guy who announces King Jaffe
oh,
Joffer.
well, speaking of little cameos, and if before we wrap up, in the original movie, the snowball fight scene with little Debbie and the other
Mm-hmm.
kids and so on as they were playing. So,
Yes.
and then Dudley says, "Well, who's the leader?" And the kid that raises his hand,
Hmm.
he plays young George Bailey in "It's a Wonderful Life."
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I don't know his
Nice.
name, but he's got a very distinctive voice and face. But he plays young Jimmy Stewart, as a young boy in "It's a Wonderful
Oh,
Life."
I
So,
love that. It's funny too because we mentioned It's a Wonderful Life. The character of Joe Hamilton in The Preacher's Wife is giving like Mr. Potter,
mhm.
Ebenezer Scrooge kind of
Yeah,
vibes.
the money
Greedy
grubbing.
money man. I don't care about Christmas.
Right, I'm gonna, I build these cheap houses, or I'm gonna, do these developments or whatever it may
Hmm.
be. Yeah,
The
so
ugliest places ever. The model of that church, I was like, wait, is it going to be white?
well, it was just, uh, uh, you know, yeah, he showed the model, and it was like he had like the senior center, and I like how he lifted the roof
Open
off
it
of the
up.
church and stuff, and there was the choir, and they had their little robes on and stuff, and it was
Yeah.
like, he told Henry he was going to be, like famous, and
What if Courtney B. Vance was like, is this a center for ants? Like in Zoolander? The other
it,
piece in the preacher's wife,
nicely done, by the way.
thank you. That was real life. Was the other little boy Hakeem?
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, Hakeem, who was had lost his, or his mother had run off.
Yeah, so Jeremiah, who is the son of the preacher and his wife, has a little best friend that lives like across the street from the church, basically named Hakeem, who's like, yeah, like his mother had run off, like, and he was living with his grandmother, but who like clearly like couldn't really take
Take
care of
care of
him.
him.
So he was being taken away by Child Protective Services.
I know he was, and he was taken far away, evidently, in foster
Yeah,
care
they were
because
like,
they said he was going to be on a train. Uh,
yeah. And
So,
it was very sad. And that was something that like Jeremiah always talked about with Dudley. Like, I really miss my friend Hakeem and all this stuff. And then eventually that's like the Christmas surprise for Jeremiah is they brought back Hakeem and they said he would just stay until New Year's and then they'd figure it out. But in the voiceover, we learned that he became his real brother. So they like adopted him, which was so sweet. I was like, oh.
well, and at the first beginning of the movie, remember Jeremiah says I want a brother for Christmas,
Hmm.
and Whitney says I don't think Santa brings those kind of presents, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you know, but yeah, it sort of like closed that loop, and
Hmm.
that was a very sweet, poignant thing about like,
Hmm.
and I think the your movie, I'll say it, your movie dealt more with real life situations. You know,
Hmm.
the young boy convicted or falsely accused of a crime, and then
Hmm.
Hakeem having to leave, you know, because no one was there to take care of him, and nobody
Hmm.
stepped up, and that sort of thing, and then um, yeah, there were other things going on. So
And I think it added to Henry's story because, like, when he was able to get that kid Billy out of jail and like
right,
get those charges dropped, it's like, oh, he like it makes sense that he would kind of get to that place at the end, right?
right.
That he would like be like, oh, you know what? Like, what I'm doing here, I can't do everything, but like what I can do matters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that he did make a difference,
Hmm.
and that people do depend on him, or that he's able to impact their lives. So,
Yeah. And I think that also, I will say the last kind of parallel is that both Dudleys make the Christmas trees very fancy
yeah,
in the
yeah,
houses, which is nice because
I like that. I
the
did like the special effects in the original one, which I know are very dated, but for their time, I thought that was pretty good when they did the Christmas tree and he
hmm
did the filing cards,
hmm
you know, the
that
index
was fun. It
cards.
reminded me of like it was like Bewitched kind of like
Exactly. Yeah. Sort of.
stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Or like Mary Poppins, that's what it reminded me of. It was like Mary Poppins kind of special effects.
yeah. Um, but I enjoyed both movies, and like I said, the first one always has a special place in my heart, just because of the story and so on. And then I did really enjoy the second one. You know, well, who doesn't like Whitney Houston singing?
I
I don't know
mean,
why I'd never
Whitney
seen it
Houston
before.
singing,
And Denzel
Denzel,
Washington all dressed up and
and I
looking
think Courtney
very
B. Vance was
dapper.
great too.
I really like Courtney B. Vance. I tell because he always, to me, he always played the character like it was like sort of like, I won't say stuck up, but like, you know, more like he sort of like holds himself a little bit, you know, more above or whatever. And in this one, it was like, oh, I always got to do the right thing. I always have to be, you know, the person there. And then, like Dudley told him, he says, you know, because he said, he goes, you and Julia need to be together. You need to, you know, have that
Hmm.
time. You know, this, you don't have to be the preacher all the time. So, you know,
Hmm.
not in that sense.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
And I think I really appreciated in both of them because I think also this is like, even I'm not a preacher. I'm not a not into that's not my vibe. But like I think being in a sort of like helping quote unquote kind of role, and I'm sure
mm-hmm,
you relate to this too, but I think there is a sense of like you can kind of lose sight of things both in what you're doing and like outside of it, I think. Right? Because
yeah,
it seems like both of them kind of lose sight of like what they're kind of doing it for, what their like role is, what they're meant to do, right? Like Henry in the bishop's wife gets really like the thing I have to do is get this cathedral built. And at one point I think when Dudley's leaving, he's like, "Well, you can't leave. I didn't get my cathedral."
mm-hmm,
And I wrote down what Dudley said. Hold on. He said, you were praying for guidance. You weren't praying for a cathedral. You were praying for guidance. And like, you have
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
because he needed to be guided like back to his relationship and like again what mattered, like his role as a bishop is not about like the building, right? And I think that's like kind of a thing, right? Like a church is not a building, a church is people.
Right. Right.
And I think same thing for Courtney B. Vance in The Preacher's Wife. Like he was trying to do all of these things, and like he seemed to have a sense that like if I cannot fix every problem that comes up in my church and congregation, then like I might as well not be here.
Yeah. It not realizing, or maybe not knowing, what you do, whatever amount it is helping. Is
Yeah. And he got so into like feeling like he had to solve every problem that he neglected Julia. Like even there's the part when he's writing his sermon and she's like, "Hey, do you want some hot cocoa?" And she comes to bring it to him and then he's like, "No, thank you." And then he's like, "I gotta check the fuse box." And he like kind of walks by her, kisses her on the cheek, and like leaves the room. It's like
such a
she's right
I
there.
know, such an idiot. I mean, that's
She made you hot cocoa.
as a husband, my reaction was, doofus, take take 10 minutes, sit down with your wife, drink some hot cocoa, hold her hand, tell her
Right.
how beautiful she is, thank her for making you hot cocoa.
Right.
It's just stuff that it it doesn't cost anything to be nice,
Exactly.
or to be thoughtful sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the
I
biggest
agree.
thing.
I
Anyway.
agree.
Oh,
That's also
and
like you can take 5 minutes away from your sermon. Like
it
it's fine. It'll probably be better. Come back to it with fresh eyes. Drink your hot
I
cocoa. Warm
I
yourself up.
I think some days I think to myself, I start play or humming the Billy Joel song "Vienna Waits for You."
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love
Whenever
that song.
it's like, slow down, you crazy child.
Mm-hmm.
You know, take the phone off the hook for a while.
Yeah.
It's like, there's. I tell people sometimes, there, unless I can tell people to either cut the red wire or the black wire, there's nothing I can tell you, at some point that's going to make a huge impact on your life that has to be done right away. So,
Mm-hmm.
but, but anyway. Oh, on casting, I had another note. In
Yes.
the original movie, originally, Cary Grant and David Niven's roles were reversed.
Oh, interesting.
They cast David Niven as the angel, as Dudley, and Cary Grant as the bishop. And after a few days, they realized, both of them realized that it wasn't working, and
Mm-hmm.
then they switched roles, and then that we ended up with that. So
That's so interesting. Yeah, because I can't imagine it the other way around.
I
I mean,
know.
I don't like, I'm not familiar with David Niven's work as I am with Cary Grant, but like that Dudley has to be that like kind of like sweet,
Mhm.
charming kind of thing. And like Henry has to be a little bit more like uptight and like
Mhm.
disconnected. And it doesn't feel like that would,
And I think
the reverse
they
would,
got that vibe, but for whatever reason,
yeah.
I read that when they originally cast it, they cast Cary Grant as Henry and David as Dudley. So,
Yeah.
but
My other note about the bishop's wife is uh the accents. Because like some of these people are English, some of these people are American, but also this was like the period of time in cinema when like everybody talked in like the mid-Atlantic accent. So you're like, are you English? Like, what are you? Everyone talked in like a half English. Like everyone talked like Madonna. Like,
mhm.
like what are you? Like,
Or Catherine Hepburn.
yes, we have to go get the Christmas tree. What are we doing today? We have to go get. We're shopping for the Christmas tree, and it's like, where are you? Where does this take place?
That yeah, and like, because if you look at three of the David Niven, Cary Grant were born in England, and as was Elsa Lancaster. So it's
Hmm.
like they're all in England, and it's like,
Yeah.
or from England, and you're sitting there going, whatever. Uh, you know, I just wondered how an English person ended up being a maid in a bishop's house. So in a bishop's household. So like I said, I even wrote down and said, being a bishop must be a pretty good gig back in 1947.
That's
They
what
had a
I was
nice house.
thinking. Because I was like, how is your church like struggling for money? But look at you. You got a
I
full
know.
staff.
Yeah. So I also wrote down that Henry is overwrought and turning into a jerk. I guess but he has to kiss a lot of butt. Schedule's too crowded. He's overworked. And I wrote, I think I'm a bishop.
Right? I think I might feel that way too. Listen, I can relate. I've never been a bishop or a preacher, but the that feeling, I was like, I can relate.
Yeah,
I can
look,
relate.
little. Also, I noticed in the movie, in the original movie, I don't think Henry has a wedding ring.
Interesting. I wonder if like maybe
He has a ring
norms.
on. He has a ring on his right finger,
Hmm.
but I don't think it's a wedding band. But traditionally, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know if
I think in some countries they wear it on the other one, so I don't know.
maybe
Maybe it
it.
was
Well,
different.
in England, so who
Wherever the
knows?
hell this movie takes place.
Where exactly wherever this was.
Yeah,
So
but maybe I should start praying and then maybe Denzel Washington will appear to me to guide me on the right path.
there you go. So, or at least a reasonable facsimile.
Right, exactly. It's we're almost 30 years on, so it'll be
Yes.
someone of the
Yeah.
moment, someone young and charming. Maybe it'll be
Well,
like, I don't know. Daniel Kaluuya is very charming. Maybe Daniel
yeah.
Kaluuya will appear to me
I was
and
thinking of Tom Holland.
Tom Holland. Okay, okay. I'm on,
He
or
could
like
be.
it could be Andrew Garfield also. I would take
Could
Andrew
be.
Garfield.
Okay, could be Andrew. Yeah. Okay. All right.
You never know. So maybe that's it. Um, if I could, I would
As
like
long
to
as
put
it's
in a
not Clarence
specific.
from It's a Wonderful Life.
No, that's he was a rough one, but that was George Bailey was at a real low moment. I will say, can I just say it for Christmas movies generally, none of them are like super happy.
No,
There's you can't it's like you can't have a Christmas movie without like it's got to be a bummer to some extent.
where it's
It's
got
a
to be.
Wonderful Life. It goes very it's like we're about to kill ourselves like that
Yeah.
level. But
Well,
like every one I can think of, it's like bad stuff is happening.
a Christmas Carol.
Christmas Carol, even like I mean, even like the funny ones like Elf, like he's
Yeah.
sort of like an orphan with like no home.
Right. Well, he's banished out, or he's not banished, but he leaves the North Pole. He has
And
to.
then he like doesn't get accepted by anyone when he gets to Earth. And like eventually it's okay, but then also it's like people Santa can't fly because no one believes in him.
Right. So, I mean, there's always, yeah, you know
And
what?
like
You're right.
I'm trying to like think of ones that aren't ones that we're going to talk about. Like the Santa Claus, he like has no relationship with his son. Like
Hmm.
the Family Stone, there's all this family stuff and spoiler alert, like somebody has cancer. Like so
What?
many of them,
No,
it's just
just
like,
kidding.
oh, this is Home Alone. A child is left alone and
Left
about to be
Alone,
murdered by twice.
Die Hard,
A Die Hard one, it's like we have a
terrorists
estranged
take over the
marriage
Nakajima building.
and a terrorist attack. Like, because we
Exactly.
even before the terrorist attack, we're starting on not great footing
Right.
because we're having a Christmas visit between estranged spouses who live on opposite sides of the
I
country.
was going to say the marriage is on the rocks. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
you know what? You're absolutely right. There's,
like
Rudolph.
all the ones that we talked about last time.
Oh, by the way, for all of our listeners, if you hadn't noticed, and Lindsay and I didn't know this, and I don't think we knew about it before we did our podcast, but tonight they're showing the 60th anniversary of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer on NBC for the first time in decades, evidently.
Yes, yes,
And
and NBC is where it
it's
first
the
aired.
expanded version, or it's the full version. So
Yeah, and I
anyway,
think they're playing it again next week. I feel like I read
okay,
like the 6th and the 12th.
okay,
So hopefully, by the time you listen to this, I think you'll have another chance to watch
yeah,
it.
to watch it. So yeah,
But and
anyway,
they're gonna be playing the Grinch at some point too.
yeah, and
So
Frosty.
ooh. But yeah, I think that is something that I noticed about Christmas movies. Like it's like you
Mhm.
can't have Christmas without a little melancholy.
Well, maybe that's that it brings out the dichotomy of Christmas. You start out maybe feeling bad or crummy or
Hmm.
whatever, and then something happens and you get the Christmas spirit, or something.
Hmm.
You get visited by an angel or
Yeah.
Santa
Or a
Claus
series
or
of spirits.
or a series of spirits, you know, oh, they did it all in one night. So
to scare you straight.
put the fear of God in you and or the fear of clanking around in your chains, you know,
Hmm.
for all eternity. So
Yep, yep.
movies though. So did you enjoy the first version,
I
the
did.
Bishop?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did. I
Okay.
think like it was different and I think it was more contained. It was more about like the more
Hmm.
immediate family minus like the professor and Sylvester the cab driver, but I think that it was still like nice and sweet and I think there was like Cary Grant is very charming. I love he's like I think he says something like kiss her you lucky Henry or something
Oh,
like
I
that.
know. Yeah.
So there's some great like moments, and I think that like some of the funny moments are funnier in that. Like the chair part is really funny, and I love like his sort of angel magic. Uh,
Uh, but in yours, I like the fact that they dealt with other issues outside of, you know, that small sphere of just the church and the cathedral and stuff, you know, that and
hmm
then Henry's world is, you know, there's a lot going on, you know, just not just
hmm
church business. So
Yeah, yeah, and I think that is maybe the only thing that maybe like I would like more of in the original one is that because I don't think we
hmm
get as much of like Henry's world. All we really know is like he's trying to build this cathedral.
exactly. Yeah, there's not other things like, you know, are any of the parishioners you know, sick or you know, or having difficulties or whatever, you know, it's,
Hmm
you know, it's all stuff like all the, well, you know, they did talk about they're closing St. Timothy's or St. Timothy's, I guess it is.
hmm
So, but
Yeah. And we hear
um,
something like he has to go speak to someone. He has like a speaking engagement at lunch, but like, who are you? Who's he talking to? Right? Because like
yeah,
Courtney B. Vance was going to like the closing of the youth center and
yeah,
like,
yeah. Courtney had to go to like all the bad stuff, you know.
yeah,
It was like,
he was
oh,
visiting
whether,
sick people in the hospital.
yeah, oh, they're shutting down the homeless shelter, but I guess you got to go say a few words, you know.
Yeah.
You know, good luck with that.
Right, right.
So,
Sorry, guys.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
Sorry, y'all don't have any place to stay, but you know, hey, it's
yeah,
Christmas, so you
yeah.
know.
But both couples did do their like Christmas Eve like basket delivery thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's
They were
true.
both going, which is nice. I guess that I imagine that's something that would be the clergy person's
Yeah,
role. But
I thought Courtney B. Vance is a preacher too, and I'm just talking from experience in my hometown about preachers, about Baptist preachers. It's like, you know, he had a crummy car. It was run down, and I mean, the house was connected to the church. I mean, they lived
mhm,
where the church was, and it was big, but it was sort of like run down, and you know,
yeah,
even yeah, even the house sort of reminded me of It's a Wonderful Life's house. You know, it was kind of a, you know,
mhm,
old run down, you know,
yeah.
home that needed work.
Their
So
Christmas decorations, when Jennifer Lewis was unpacking them, she was like, "This tree topper's as old as Methuselah."
this will be the last Christmas for you, or something like
Yeah.
that, or you'll never be on another tree after this year. I
hmm
mean, yeah, the supporting cast was very good in both movies, but more so, I think there was a lot more depth in the second movie.
Yeah, I think they got a little more
Yeah.
time and
Oh
stuff to
yeah.
do.
And I think there were, yeah, they really, you know, made the most of it too. Like I said,
Hmm
I love Beverly, the
Yeah,
secretary. She was great.
she's
Because that's
Loretta
so
Devine.
typical when somebody comes in. It's like, oh, I'm going to lose my job. You know, who brought you in? Who hired you?
What are
You
you
know,
doing here?
what? You
I
know
have
what?
children. I'm a single mom. I have to support them.
Yeah, I can't lose this job. So, um,
I also love the way I think Denzel asked like, "Oh, are those are your kids? Like, did your husband take the picture?" Then she said, "Yeah." And then he took a waitress from the diner to Cleveland.
that was a great line. That was terrific. So,
It was great.
yeah,
It
it
was
did
great.
seem like Denzel's Dudley didn't know as much about the people as Carrie's Dudley. Carrie seemed to
Hmm
know, you know, oh, I know, you know, who you are, and you know, I know he knew all about the professor and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So, and there
But
were
yeah,
little
he's
sweet moments between those two as well. Like towards the end, when the professor he said, "Well, I'm going to write my book. I'm going to finish my book, but I'm worried I won't." last long enough. And Dudley
Hmm.
said, "You'll last long enough. Like
Yeah,
you'll live long enough to write your book." So
that was very sweet. And I think
yeah,
that's you get another example of someone who didn't really like a sort of old cynic
yeah.
coming around.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So
I guess maybe some of the time that would have been the professors became in the preacher's wife, it was more Henry
yeah.
time, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
So
But yeah, I think I like them both. What I was gonna say is we talked a little bit last time about kind of different Christmas, what we love
mm.
about Christmas. And since we talked about some singing in this, I thought we could talk about Christmas songs. And because one of the things I was thinking of, we were talking about sad movies, is there's a part, so I've never seen Meet Me in St. Louis
Oh.
yet, but in The Family Stone, there's a part where they watch Meet Me in St. Louis, and they're
Mm.
watching the part where Judy Garland sings "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas," and that to me is like such. Like her singing it is like beautiful to me, but it is such like a melancholy song
Oh
to
yeah.
me.
And you've not seen the movie, so you don't know the context of why she's singing it.
No,
Okay, so I
but if
won't
you tell
spoil
me,
it
I
for
mean,
you. No, no,
I
no.
won't be mad.
No, I was going to say, but it was written for the movie, but it's,
Hmm.
yeah, she's singing it to her little sister, Margaret
Hmm.
O'Brien. So,
But yeah,
um,
like we'll have to muddle through somehow.
yeah, things are not going, yeah, things are not, well, it's a typical, it goes through all the holidays, but
Mhm.
it's around Christmas time when and that takes place. But yeah, the family's going through some changes and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think that one is kind of like things suck right now, but
Yeah,
someday.
we'll figure it out, and it'll get better. So do you have some favorite Christmas songs that you listen to?
Yes. And I think I would class them into like sort of like the classic ones that have been
Yeah.
around a while and then kind of more contemporary poppy
Oh,
ones.
uh-huh.
For me, like my absolute favorite, I don't know why exactly, but it is like the Christmas song, as in like chestnuts roasting on open. Like the
Oh,
title
okay.
is the
Well,
Christmas song,
that's
but Nat King Cole singing that.
that's the title of it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that one's my favorite.
Okay.
Like,
And you like the Nat King Cole version as opposed to the
yes.
Mel Torme version?
I don't know that I've heard the Mel Torme version. I think I've grown up hearing the Nat King Cole
Because
version.
Mel Torme wrote it.
Okay. Well, I like Nat King Cole's voice.
Oh no, I'm just
Um,
saying. So yeah, so Nat King Cole was one of my favorite singers of all time anyway.
he
So
just like it just is so like perfect and like crisp. Like,
his voice is just, there's just something about his voice that
yeah. I like all the ones that sound kind of like old standards. Like
mm-hmm.
those kind of singers. So I like Tony Bennett doing Winter Wonderland.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah. Mm-hmm.
that I enjoy a lot. The
Um,
sort of more like jazzy. Also, I do like, and this it's a problem, but I do like Baby It's Cold Outside.
I love that song. As a matter of fact,
I understand like contextually it sounds bad, but like just vocally and like lyrically, like it is such a fun song to listen to and
did
like sing
you
along with.
did you ever see the version? And I don't know what show it was on, but it was sung by Lady Gaga and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Wait a minute, am I saying that right?
Yes, I think I've seen it.
But
I know what
they
you're talking
reversed the
about.
roles.
Yes.
Lady Gaga
Yes.
was the protagonist, and
Mm-hmm.
it's trying to get him to stay.
Mm-hmm.
That was very well done. But my favorite is Dean Martin, but I don't know who the woman is in the song.
I know what you're talking about. I think I've heard that one.
That's my
Um,
favorite. But again, Dean Martin is one of my favorite singers. But I
yeah.
love that version. I like Andy Williams singing "Oh Holy Night"
Mm.
because I love that song, and I really like the way he sings it.
I was listening recently to I think Celine Dion singing it.
"Oh Holy Night."
Uh-huh. And it
Yeah,
was good.
she's got a set of pipes on her.
Also, I think what like the Christmas playlist I always put on, it has Whitney doing "Do You Hear What I Hear?" and
Oh, I don't
it's
think
very nice.
I've probably heard it, but that doesn't ring a bell with me right away. So,
It's very good. I don't always like get too into the like those are the sort of like I feel like there's the like the sort of classic-y standards. There's like the religious ones, and then
hmm
there's the like the current poppy ones. So like I of course love All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey. Like it's just a catchy, fun song. I have to listen to that. I also have to listen to Britney Spears is My Only Wish This Year.
Oh, okay.
It's basically she's wishing for like a boyfriend from Santa.
Oh,
Um, but I also like this one is also problematic and I think it is like an annoying white savior song, but Do They Know It's Christmas is a very catchy song to me.
oh yeah. Well, it's, yeah. Uh-huh.
I just think it's like there won't be snow in Africa. Like, okay, there also won't be snow in like Florida. Like the snow is not the point. But
It was
I
a
get
different time.
it was, but I think it is like it's just a good like enjoyable song to listen to and like sing along with. So, what about you? I know one of your favorites.
You know
It's
what,
the Christmas Baby Please Come Home by Darlene Love.
Darlene Love, it is not Christmas for me until I hear that song. And if for our listeners, it was last year, my wife gave me one of the best Christmas presents ever, which we went to go see Darlene Love live in concert at Hartford Community College in a very intimate setting, and we were front row. I mean, I was 10 feet away from Darlene Love, and she sounded magnificent. And then she closed the show with that. It was a Christmas show.
That's
It was
awesome.
fabulous. But
She sang
that's,
it on an episode of New Girl, also the
oh,
show
did
with
she?
Zoe Deschanel. Yeah, they're like all outside, like in
But
the
every
snow.
year for like 20 years, she sang it on David Letterman.
It's
And
such a it is a
he
good
said
song.
he said it wasn't Christmas until he had Darlene Love on, on his show singing "Baby Please Come Home for Christmas." So that's my absolutely favorite Christmas song.
It is a good
Um,
one.
I like a lot of the old standards. We Three Kings,
Mm,
uh, but I'll tell you who I like singing it, and I can't remember the name of the group, but it used to be it was a soul group, and I can't remember that, but it wasn't like the traditional, it was like more soulful, the way they sang it. So, and it was the guys that did the voices of the California Raisins when they did the
mm,
commercials, but they would sing "We Three Kings," "White Christmas,"
mm.
from the movie. I always like that from the movie White Christmas with
By
Bing
Bing
Crosby,
Crosby.
Ben
Yeah,
Crosby,
me
and Danny
too.
Kaye, and Snow from the same movie with the four of them with
I don't think I know that song.
Danny Kaye, Bing Crosby, and Rosemary Clooney, and those are
Vera Ellen.
Vera Ellen. I couldn't remember her name.
Yeah. But yeah,
Fabulous
I do
dancer.
like Bing Crosby's voice on like I'm dreaming
Hmm.
of a white
I also like
white.
Elvis Blue Christmas.
Yes, same. I was gonna say. Um Eartha Kitt's Santa Baby, classic.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It gets me every time. You gotta
And
get the there are always these occasional like horny Christmas songs, right?
yeah,
Like I think Let It Snow is a little bit like that.
mm-hmm,
And I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus.
mm-hmm.
I always
Um,
I always get the lately the I like the Jackson 5 version, but the Dolly Parton version keeps coming up and she's very cute, so I like that too.
I
But
like that, but I'm like you. I like the Jackson Five.
yeah.
So
I
with
will also
Michael,
say Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I like both the Jackson 5 version and the Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band version.
we were listening to that the other day on the E Street Band version, and we were talking about who'd have thought when he released that would become a standard. I mean,
Hmm.
because it was, but for his version to become a
Yes,
standard,
I
the
love
rock
the
and
drums. The do 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 do.
and
Santa Claus is
and
coming to
Clarence,
town.
on the
Yes, you
sax.
better be good for goodness sakes.
Rest in
I
peace, Clarence.
that's another one I love. So I had a Now That's What I Call Christmas. Like you remember like Now, like those
Mm-hmm.
CDs.
Mm-hmm.
So I have like the original Now That's What I Call Christmas and it was
Oh,
on it.
okay.
And like one C it was a two CD thing and one was like the more classic ones. So it
Yeah.
had like White Christmas, Blue Christmas, like Santa Baby, like all of those. And then the other one had like Do They Know It's Christmas? It had the Happy Christmas War Is Over. It had the Britney Spears song. It had like Boys to Men. It had Wonderful Christmas Time by Paul McCartney.
I kind of
Uh,
like that one. That
my
that
little brother used to really love that when he was a kid. That was
that
like his
yeah.
favorite. I think he liked synth music.
Oh, okay.
I think he liked the dun, dun, dun,
Do do
dun,
do. Yep.
like those, all the noises in it. Um,
Well, we talked last week. The Snoopy, the Charlie Brown. You know,
hmm
uh,
yeah.
you know, Christmas time.
I like the what about the Chipmunks?
Oh
Christmas,
yeah,
don't be late.
I
Me,
used to
I
watch the
want
Chipmunks TV
Ahoo,
show.
Ahoo.
Alvin. Yeah, that's a
Um,
good one. That is a standard.
yeah. I also like Sleigh Ride. I like both the Ella Fitzgerald. I think I might like the
Uh,
Ronettes a touch more because
I'm I'm
I
an
like
Ella Fitzgerald fan.
I just
Boy,
like a
she
girl
had such a great
I
voice.
just like a girl group. I think like I
Oh
love
yeah,
listening to
yeah,
like
yeah.
I was listening to the Chiffons the other day. Like I just like I love Last Christmas by Wham, even though it's not like here's the thing. Last Christmas, it could be called Last Tuesday. It really has nothing to do with Christmas.
No, just
It
yeah.
just
Last
happens to
Christmas, I
take
gave
place
you
at
my
Christmas.
heart. Yeah.
Last Christmas is like the die hard of Christmas songs.
Christmas songs. Yeah, you could substitute any time of the year, and it's still it would hold up. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
true. Um,
I will say Feliz Navidad. I think that since I was a kid, I learned that song and like we sang it in second grade. When I was in elementary school, which like in
it's got to
retrospect, I
be the
like
Jose Feliciano version.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Um, we had a day around Christmas. I was in retrospect, I'm like this was very exclusive, but okay. We had like a Christmas day where like each grade would sing a
Oh,
song, and it
really?
built up. Fifth grade, you looked forward to fifth grade because fifth grade they did the 12 days of Christmas, and they had
Oh.
basically like a pyramid. So like people were played all the parts. So like
Oh.
when I was
Okay.
in fifth grade, I was one of the nine ladies dancing. So like every time
Oh.
you that part and the song would come up, like that row would stand up and like do the thing. So like 10
Cool.
lords leaping, they would jump, and like nine ladies dancing, we would dance.
Dance.
And
Well,
like the
that's
shortest
neat.
girl in fifth grade was the
Partridge in a
partridge in a
pear
pear
tree.
tree.
Oh.
And like the three French hens would be like, ooh la la, every time like they got up. So
Oh, nice.
it was that was like the highlight. But in second grade we did Feliz Navidad. And I think we also did Rudolph. But yeah, like that was a highlight. And like we would do Winter Wonderland, and like the chorus would sing, they sang a song about like snow days. It was like a made up song about snow day playing in the white stuff. It was not like a
I
classic
was gonna
song.
say I don't think I know that
Um,
one.
no. I love the Beach Boys, so Little Saint Nick
Do you?
is I like the Beach Boys, I think like I grew up listening to, so I like love them.
Oh, okay. All right. So
Like I think the way that some people feel about the Beatles, I feel about the Beach Boys. Like I would rather listen to the Beach Boys probably, just because I love a harmony, first of all, a multi-part
yeah,
harmony. And they're just like fun and like summery. So I love the Run Run Reindeer. And I like Run Run Rudolph by Chuck Berry.
yeah, that's a good one.
This Christmas by Donny Hathaway. That's a good one.
I don't know that I know that song.
It's good. Sort of more
Oh,
like R&B, like soulful song.
okay.
But it's you should listen to it. It's good. It's a good song. Especially like Chris Brown covered it like later. There he was in a movie called This Christmas that involved that song,
Okay.
but Donny Hathaway's version is very good. It's I think it's another sort of like love song, Christmas love song because it's like hang all the mistletoe, I'm going to get to know you better this Christmas.
Oh, okay.
We
So it's
talked
kind of perverted.
it's not it's like cars are here. The world is filled with cheer and you this Christmas. The fireside is blazing bright. We're caroling through the night, and this Christmas will be a very special Christmas for me. So I think it's just like looking forward to like seeing this person.
I'd like the Eagles song.
Oh, the
Please come home for Christmas.
yeah. Well, we talked about another iconic one last time, but the You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch
Oh yeah,
is
yeah. Come on,
is
that's. I
classic.
mean, that doesn't have one thing in it about Christmas,
It
but
doesn't.
as soon as you hear it, that don't you think of Christmas time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and going back to our movies that we reviewed, and realizing that the preacher's wife was gospel, so but
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't there was one Christmas song in it, I think.
Yeah, they finished with Joy to the World.
Joy to the World.
And they
So,
sang the whatever that song was during the nativity
oh,
thing. Like
was that a
he's a
Christmas?
king.
Oh, yeah,
Well, it's
yeah,
about
yeah.
like Jesus Christ being
Yeah,
born. So it's
yeah.
like it's Christmas in the Bible sense. It's a Bible one.
In the biblical.
But yeah, Joy to the World. Well, Joy to the World is also biblical.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, they finished with Joy to the World. But yeah,
I do
not
like Hark the Herald Angels Sing. We talked about that last time.
yes, yes.
For
I have a piano book of like those classic Christmas songs. That's like my piano skills is playing like the
well, there's
first
nothing wrong
Noel
with
I can
that.
bang out the first Noel and like
Oh, okay.
Silent Night's pretty easy to play too. But
That used to be one of my favorite songs, but I don't know if it, for some reason, it just sort of
yeah.
it went down the list there.
Yeah,
So,
I think that they sort of wax and wane. Like this year, I will say a couple that I've um the song I've Got My Love to Keep Me Warm has been like really
oh, that's a good one
I've been
with
really into it.
Dean Martin's version.
Mm-hmm.
Love
Mm-hmm.
that one.
My playlist has Idina Menzel and Billy Porter, which is also good, but
Oh, I bet that's good.
it
Yeah.
is good. I do like the classic. But I've been like that's the one that's been stuck in my head. And I also really love I think because it feels like uh pertinent, but like Someday at Christmas by Stevie Wonder.
Oh, okay.
'Cause it's, you know,
Well, look at
someday
this.
at
Britney Spears is
Christmas
on the
there
top
won't be
100
one.
Christmas songs of all time. My Only Wish this year,
That's the
2000.
one. It's a catchy song.
Oh, this is a favorite of mine. Dan Fogelberg, Same Old Lang Syne.
I don't know that I know that.
Oh, that was 1980. I remember that. You talk about a melancholy ballad. Yeah, it's a movie and a 5 minute pop song according to this.
Hmm.
So,
I also like there's a more recent song that Mariah Carey did called Oh Santa that's her, Ariana Grande, and Jennifer Hudson. It's a
oh,
very catchy
really?
song. Santa, I'm really good this year. Please won't you come that you find this Christmas here. I don't know all the words, but that's like the vibe of it.
Oh, this is a good one though, and depending on who's, I'll Be Home for Christmas.
Hmm.
I like
Yeah.
Elvis's version,
Hmm.
but the other person that sang it was Fats Domino.
Mm.
So
J
Marilyn Maxwell was the woman singer in Dean Martin's "Baby It's Cold Outside." So,
mm. There you
uh,
go. I will say one that I loved when I was a kid that now I like cannot listen to is Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer.
oh my
I
God,
thought
I
that song
remember.
was
Oh,
so funny when I was a kid, and as an adult, I'm like, I do not want to hear this.
I know that. I mean, they just played it to death.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Oh, another one that I've gotten into recently is it's like a new wave song called Christmas Wrapping by the Waitresses. It's just like got the cool like
oh,
kind of new wave beat,
mm-hmm.
like Talking Head song. Um
Um,
I can't sing it because we've been singing all these other ones. They're like stuck in my head. But
um,
yeah.
I like there's no place like home for the holidays.
Hmm.
And Perry Como, I love that.
Yeah. I feel that way about It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year. I feel like that like to be sort of ushers in like Christmas, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like you open the door to Christmas and they're playing that song. It's like it like kicks off the holiday season, I feel like.
Yes.
That's like the by Andy Williams.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, Jingle Bell Rock, always a favorite. Shout out to Mean Girls.
Oh,
Remember
okay.
when they
I forgot
do the
about that.
dance to it.
This is one I heard the other day. Johnny Mathis did it, but Michael Bublé did it to it, and I like it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
Hmm. That's a nice
Just
one
I
too.
like the smoother
Hmm.
songs, you know. So just to me. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think I covered
I feel like
most
we've
of
covered like all of them.
the classics, but also a couple of ones. Hopefully, maybe people. Oh, I didn't know about that or didn't think about that.
Hmm.
Christmas traditions in the Wilson household? Is there anything special that you all do that that maybe it makes it special for you or for your family? That
Yeah, I mean, we and like they've evolved, of course. Like when I was a
Mm-hmm.
kid and like both sets of my grandparents lived locally, so it would be like breakfast at grandmom's. And I like hated eating breakfast because I just wanted to open presents. But they were like, you have
Oh,
to sit here and eat breakfast. And
that
then like
was
lunch
ours
at my
growing
nanny's
up.
house and dinner at my house because they all lived like we all lived like around the corner from each other basically. But now mostly it's we always make cookies. My brother and I usually decorate some sugar cookies at some
Uh-huh.
point with icing. Um our current tradition, so December 23rd, we go eat in a Mexican restaurant and then we
Really?
drive around. Yeah. And this was only in the past few years that this has
Uh-huh.
become the tradition, but like it's what we do now. There's a Mexican restaurant near um my parents' house. We eat there and then we
Mm-hmm.
drive around the area looking at Christmas lights.
Oh, nice.
Christmas Eve, we go to our family friends. Like we've been going to their house for Christmas Eve for my entire life.
Yeah.
So we go there, and like we eat and exchange presents with them. And then Christmas, oh, and also we make when we were kids, we would make reindeer food, which was really like
Oh,
oats and like glitter,
y-
basically. And
yeah.
my brother and I, even though like we're both kind of we still toss it on the lawn because
Do you
it's
really?
just a
That's
tradition.
nice.
We
Oh, I
do.
think that's sweet.
This My mom makes us take the same picture every year. So like it's a picture of me and my brother. We sit in the same spot. Like we're both like I'm on one side, he's on the other. And
Oh,
she
no.
puts out at Christmas all of them.
All the pictures. That's
Yeah, so we
nice.
have one. We didn't take one in 2006 because that was when he was born. Um
Well, there you
so
go.
he couldn't really participate well, but like from 2007 to now, every picture is in a frame, like lined up. What That's part of like when my mom gets out the Christmas decorations, she gets out all the pictures.
The
So
pictures.
that's part of it. And then yeah, Christmas we put out cookies again, even though we are older, we still my brother likes to still do it, so we do it.
Put
And
out cookies
then
for Santa.
mhm,
That's
on
nice.
Christmas, we get up, we open our presents. We usually then like eat something for breakfast. Often my mom and my stepdad, my brother will go to the mall and do like last minute shopping on Christmas Eve. It's become a thing. And my mom will buy Cinnabons at the mall and then we
Oh,
eat them for breakfast on
oh, that's nice.
Christmas
Oh, that's a
while
good
we
tradition.
scratch off our scratch off tickets because there's always scratch off tickets in stockings. Well, I do. My brother is less like excited about scratching out the scratch off tickets, but that's because he's a teenager and I'm like, money, need it.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah.
but yeah, that's kind of, and then we have dinner.
Instead of
Um,
real estate.
yeah, exactly. Uh, we have dinner. We always have like ham and turkey and all of our like usual
Uh-huh.
sides. We make corn pudding, which is like that's like my family thing. I've had it. Corn pudding's been
Okay.
like my favorite food since I was a child.
Okay.
It was my like it's my birthday. I got straight A's, like corn pudding.
Oh, really?
Like my
Okay.
stepdad's from Texas, so he
So
makes
it's
this
not
like
just Christmas.
no, no. I mean now it's mostly just Christmas and Thanksgiving because it's just
Yeah.
like I don't know. I don't like make full meal. I live by myself. But like any kind of big meal, we
Mm-hmm.
have corn
Corn
pudding.
pudding.
My stepdad makes like dressing, like which is basically just for people who are not like from the South. Dressing is just like it's basically stuffing that's not stuffed in a
Right.
turkey.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Um,
for those of y'all who grew up north of the Mason-Dixon line, yeah. So
yes.
to us people, us Southerners, it's stuffing and dressing are two different things.
Yes.
They look and taste the same,
They're
but they're
basically the
different.
same, but one of them has been in the turkey.
Exactly.
Dressing has not been in the turkey.
Right.
So yeah, my stepdad makes dressing, so it's like that kind of stuff. That's kind of it. What about you?
Not so much anymore. The family's grown smaller. When we were, of course, when we were younger, like you, it was, when my younger brother and I were both little, it was always, you always had to eat breakfast before you opened it,
The
and like,
worst.
oh, the worst time. And mom it wasn't like a bowl of cereal either, because, this was a morning,
It's a full
it's a full
breakfast.
breakfast because, you didn't have to, go to school and mom didn't, and so it's all, eggs, bacon, whatever it may be. These days, yeah, like I said, we don't we of course we talk to each other. We don't really we don't Zoom, but we do talk. I talk to my sister and I talk to my brother, my older brother, and we call each other. I talk to usually my nieces. Oh, my nieces are either with their mom, my sister, and if they're not, I call them or text them. So, but that's about it, really. So, in all
Mm-hmm.
honesty, the last few years, then my wife works for the most part for other people who have families. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but Denise still likes to make a holiday meal for us. So we'll do turkey and ham, but it's just a smaller dinner. Denise does fix sauerkraut.
Mm.
That's something her family grew up with, not mine. We didn't,
Yeah.
so she fixes it for herself. So,
We have sauerkraut at Thanksgiving.
do you?
Which I think is like I think it's common in Maryland too, like a
I
lot of
think it's
German.
because my wife grew up in Maryland. So yeah,
Yeah. It's a
so
lot of German origin people here, so have
right.
sauerkraut. I do not eat the sauerkraut.
I don't either. I'm
I
not a
don't care for
sauerkraut
sauerkraut.
fan.
It smells like a fart and it's just not for me. But
No,
it is a part of the Thanksgiving.
Denise makes it, puts caraway seeds in it,
Mm-hmm.
and all this other stuff, and I think she puts sausage in it. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know because I don't eat it. So,
Yeah.
um,
No, the
so I like for dinner though for this green bean casserole. So it's just
mm,
for if we don't have it at Thanksgiving, which we have it for, we'll have it at Christmas. So,
mm.
but so and then oh I know fruitcake.
Oh yes. Yes, we talked about that last time a little
Yeah,
bit.
I'm a fruitcake. I am.
Fruitcake.
I can eat it all year round, but I especially like it. As a matter of fact, Denise just bought a fruitcake, a particular kind that I like. So I have fruitcake for starting out the holidays. So
Nice, nice.
yeah.
I
So
just like the
and
cookies. We're making a bunch of cookies. I'm actually baking cookies. We're recording this on a Friday. I'm making them tomorrow with my mom.
and I will say in the last few years, one of my other traditions has been started by you, bourbon balls.
Bourbon balls. Yeah.
So
That was a
I gotta
that's
I gotta tell you people that's a treat unto itself if you're if even if you don't like bourbon, which hey, whatever. But Lindsay's Lindsay's bourbon balls are the bomb. So, and bless her heart, she's been kind enough to make some bourbon balls for me for a few years now. So,
yeah,
and
it's
I look forward to them every year.
yeah, I think the bourbon ball making and cookie making is something that my grandmother used to do. And she would mail, she knew like the kind of cookies that everybody liked.
Oh, really?
And so she would mail cookies like
Oh, okay. Send them to
to like us,
yeah,
my cousins, my aunt, my uncle, like other cousins, like
yeah.
everybody would get, and you get the ones that like you like, right? So she knows you like snickerdoodles, you're getting snickerdoodles. We always got some bourbon balls because she knew that like my stepdad likes bourbon balls and also that like there are other people that we would give them to that like bourbon balls. So like, but yeah, she would always like kind of distribute them according to like who likes what.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you have
So,
a favorite cookie?
ooh, I love snickerdoodles. Um,
That's Denise's favorite.
I I love a classic chocolate chip. My grandmother didn't like
Oh
make
yeah,
them as much at Christmas,
I
but
like a
usually
chocolate chip cookie.
snickerdoodles. She would make the little like peanut butter blossom, so like a little peanut butter cookie with the Hershey Kiss.
Mm, okay.
She would do like the cookie press cookies that we're doing. So it's like a sort of a shortbread almost.
Yeah.
Um, and like molasses cookies are really good. They're
Oh,
kind of a like a
okay.
soft, they taste like a soft ginger snap, basically.
Yeah.
Those we're gonna make too. I those are really good. But yeah, and she would make like peppermint bark and stuff too, and like the like hard candy, like the sort of like glass looking like hard candy that you kind of
What?
shatter.
Yeah. Okay. Almost like brittle, but it's not
Yeah.
brittle. Yeah. So,
Yeah. She made
my mom used to
spearmint and
make a
like
thing
different.
called Martha Washington candy. Have you ever heard of that? It's
Mm-mm.
sort of like your bourbon balls, but there's no alcohol in it. But mom used to make that years and years
Mm.
ago, and then she made fudge. It was just to die
Mm.
for.
Oh yeah,
So
my grandma would make Buckeyes too. So like the little like peanut
oh
butter balls
yeah,
dipped in chocolate.
those are good. Yeah,
Hmm Hmm.
So growing up in West Virginia, we were close enough to Ohio. We would get Buckeyes over there that way. So
Nice, nice. Yeah, my
yeah,
grandma made those. So yeah, I think
so now I
sometimes it's
think I'm
just
going to
like
go
the
have a piece of fruit cake.
right. Yeah, gotta. I'm excited to eat some cookies after we bake them tomorrow.
I'm sure. So
So yeah, we're making some different sugar cookies, and I do also just like a sugar cookie, like a nice like buttery sugar
oh
cookie.
yeah.
It's just good. And I like them like I don't need sprinkles and icing. Like just
Oh
give me
okay.
like
No,
a good
just a
buttery
plain old
sugar
sugar.
cookie.
Okay, gotcha.
Bon
Um,
appetit.
so anyway, so Christmas traditions, Christmas foods, songs, and movies, and more to come.
Yeah, we've got a few more Christmas movies to talk about. I think we're gonna just be back to one an episode for the next few, just to
Yeah,
give
yeah,
ourselves a
yeah.
break
We'll
and
wean
give,
you all down a little
yeah, give
bit.
your ears
So
a break. But we thought, since we both kind of had these movies and there's a remake of each other, it seemed like a good opportunity to talk about them both. So, but we'll keep talking about traditions and whatnot going forward and all the things we love about Christmas. So please subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. You can also leave a rating or review. And please be sure to say something nice or think about the cost. We'll send our angels after you. Uh, you can also follow us on Instagram at Some of Our Parts Pod. You can see all the movies that we've talked about, see some little previews of what's coming, and whatever else we decide to post. And with that, bye bye.
take care.